Welcome back to the NerdNest podcast. I'm Bill, and this week it's just me and Rich. What's going on, Rich?
Hey, I'm doing well. Yeah, been a busy week, but I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. It has been my first week back with students.
Oh,
For those
that's
of you
right.
that watch and don't know that I'm a teacher, I am a teacher, and it's my first week back with students. So I have been just really busy, just getting the classroom ready and then figuring out some new stuff that we were doing this year. And then I had open house. So my time to play games has been very, very limited. And then on top of that, I had to get my staples out the other day out of my arm from the surgery that I had. So I've played no games except for, and I got to show you all this because this game has become one of my favorite games to play, and that is right here, golf, coffee golf. It is so fun, and it's just right here on your phone, and it's 5 minutes a day. But I've been going back and playing the days that I missed in the past. So
Nice.
I absolutely love that game, and I can't get enough of it. It's just so relaxing. Especially I end up flipping a little switch on my phone so I can hear the birds chirping and the golf swing when I'm playing. What have you been playing, man?
That's awesome. I haven't had a chance to play that yet. The last time you mentioned it, I really meant to get into it, but I haven't had the chance. But I've been playing Sea of Stars. I'm about 4 or 5 hours in, and it is phenomenal. It definitely does a thing where it actually branches between the what you remember from the Super Nintendo times and what you thought you would start getting in the future from RPGs. It really nails a that aesthetic but brought to modern sensibilities.
So I played because it's on, I think it's on Game Pass and PS Plus, and I can't even remember which one I have it on. I did install it, and I played essentially this tutorial where you are playing as Kale, and I don't remember the other character's name, and your kids. And it's showing you, hey, this is the thing. And there's a little flashback. And then you go up to the place. And that's when I stopped playing. I haven't played any more past that. I guess I lied. I also played a little bit of Starfield. Not much. I'm going to say maybe an hour. And then I was just too tired. Did nothing against the game. I was too tired to play. And so I set the controller down and took a nap. I'm getting old. So, did you get to play Starfield at all?
No, not yet. I've been keeping up with the discourse around it. This has been a really fun opportunity for fanboys of both sides to go crazy. Did you see the David Jaffe thing where he was talking to someone about Starfield? So yeah, did you see it?
I feel like I did, but can you just remind us? And because I'm sure that there's a lot of people watching who haven't seen that.
So David Jaffe, he's the original creator or one of the directors of God of War, the original God of War 1 and God of War 2. And he was talking to someone who I think was, I guess, an Xbox fanboy. Excuse me, a PlayStation fanboy. And that,
yes,
but either
I did
way,
see this, but go ahead.
Yes, yeah. So this person was basically saying how Starfield is disappointing, all the different ways that it's disappointing, and David Jaffe was trying to get him to be more precise about what was disappointing, but it was very broad. And then David Jaffe's like, "Oh, maybe it's your choices, right? Maybe it's the part where you have to burn the bodies." And the guy's like, "Yeah, maybe it's a little bit of that, but blah." And David Jaffe's like, "That didn't happen in this game."
Yeah,
he just got exposed. So that was kind of awesome.
It's the fanboys on both sides are just so absolutely exhausting. It is exhausting seeing this nonsense constantly just filling up my feed of people trying to get other people on stuff. And somebody like Alana Pierce, who works for PlayStation Studios, or she works for, I don't remember who. It doesn't matter who she
Sony Santa
works.
Monica, I think.
Yes, thank you. Yes, she works for Sony Santa Monica. And she was talking about playing Starfield, and people were like, she should be fired for not being loyal to PlayStation. And I'm like, how myopic can you be that you don't think people who make games shouldn't be playing other games so they can be inspired to make new stuff. Like, that's ridiculous. And I don't understand it. We've talked about it in the past, how the same thing is creeping into the PC space, where before it was like PC gamers were like this one section, and then console gamers were this other section, and the console gamers were fighting amongst themselves all the time, and the PC gamers were like, we're PC gamers, blah blah blah. But now it's like they're fragmenting into the handheld that they want to play on, the Legion Go or the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck and whatever other stuff that we end up with. I'm sure that we'll have these new splintered factions of people who, for some reason, want to try and like just scream at each other about video games. And I'm like, just play a game and have it be fun. Why can't everybody just, enjoy it?
1,000%.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's the stuff that have you been playing anything else other than Sea of Stars?
No, that's pretty much it.
All right. Well, let's move on to the news. And we've got a lot of news this week. It was funny. I sent a message to Rich because the other guys couldn't join us. And I was like, by the way, I haven't done the show notes yet. Usually I'm the one that puts all the show notes together and stuff. But I was working on shooting a thing for the YouTube channel that I had to do. And I was like, if you find some stories that you want to put in there, put in there. And then he sent a message back saying, hey, this is all the stuff that happened this week. And I was like, oh my God, all that stuff happened this week.
In 1 week. Yeah.
Pick one. Which one do you want to start with, man? Because there's a lot.
Oh man. If I thought we were gonna go down the line, because if I pick one, it has to be the Valve hardware. Can we start there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Valve hardware was super interesting. So why don't you just do a quick recap and then we'll talk about it.
Yeah, so there's been a lot going on. It started almost 2 weeks ago now, I think, with the news that there was a reference to Galileo and Sephiroth, two new code names for something in the Linux 6.6 kernel. And the thing that was shown was that this was related to the Van Gogh APU. So for the Van Gogh APU specifically, there's some new functionality for some audio chips, one for potentially speaker, one for a microphone. These are things that are not in the Steam Deck, but the Van Gogh is the only chip, is the chip that only runs in the Steam Deck. There's nowhere else that the Van Gogh runs. So it started from there, because it seems like if they're coding functionality for new hardware, then maybe there's a new revision coming, or there's a Steam Deck 2 coming, or there's some other hardware coming that's using that same APU, and most likely it would be Valve. And then sadly, it's Brad Lynch did a live stream where he broke down all the research that he's been doing into Galileo for months. So this was the first that we'd heard of Galileo, but Brad had heard about Galileo a few months ago. He got a hint basically from one of his viewers, and it was in a firmware or BIOS that Valve had for the Steam Deck, and they'd done a bunch of data mining. Wasn't sure what it was actually to, but they did a bunch of data mining, and he ended up giving those results after the Phoronix article. And then finally, the most recent piece of news was that Valve received a hardware, I think a radio certification in South Korea. And so this was certified on August 28th. And the hardware ID, the model ID that they have for it is 1030. So they'd gone through this process a few times now. They went through the process for the Valve Index and its controllers, and they went through the process for the Steam Deck. And for both of those, it was 1 to 3 months prior to the actual release of the hardware. So this almost indicates not just that they're close to announcing new hardware, but maybe even close to releasing new hardware.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. So, like, there's a whole lot of speculation going on. I had speculated. I'm not really a VR guy, so Deckard is never really at the back of my mind. I never really think about it, especially because my computer is not good enough to handle VR. So, so I usually don't think about that. So when I saw this, or when you shared that information with me, and I made my video, I was speculating, okay, well, there's a couple of different things that it could be. It could be a successor to the Steam Deck. You know, get all those ducks in a row and get that thing, you know, get working on it now. Or actually, I'm sure they've been working on it all along. And then release it when it's done. Valve has said you're not getting a Steam Deck 2 anytime soon, but that doesn't mean that they're not working on it. And so that's one thing that I thought is maybe that means that this is something that is leaking from the Steam Deck 2. But then another thing that occurred to me while I was recording was the idea of perhaps a new APU that is more efficient. We saw that with the Nintendo Switch. A lot of people pushed back on me saying that the reason that Nintendo updated their chip on the Nintendo Switch was for anti-piracy measures. And while that may be true, it also had better battery life without improving or increasing the size of the battery in the Switch. So the newer model of the Nintendo Switch, not the OLED one, that I think is HSB001 or something like that. That one has a newer chipset that doesn't push the battery nearly as hard, and so you get better battery life on the Switch. And that's something that we could see on the Steam Deck. Now, another thing that it could be is the idea of maybe a die shrink or you know, something along those lines, or a different model of Steam Deck that has the same, like a lot of the same stuff in it. It's not more powerful, but a different perhaps form factor. And I saw a lot of people saying, well, maybe it's a Steam controller too. And I don't think that you need an APU like this for a Steam controller too. So that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. But of all of those options, or if you have yet another option to add to it, what do you think this could, what's your gut tell you it is?
Yeah. The funny thing was in our group chat, right? Carrie and I went back and forth in terms of like what it could be, and Carrie like rightfully just kept shooting down ideas, like in terms of like it doesn't make sense for specifically for Deckard to be RDNA 2, and you know he had really good reasoning for that. But I think we broke down the possibilities, which is, like you said, maybe a Steam Controller 2. Steam Controller 2 doesn't make sense because of the APU and things like that. The other option was Steam Deck revisions. That's still on the table, like a Steam Deck Pro or something like that. The other option being a Steam Deck 2. We're too far out from a Steam Deck 2, so that seems off the table. Then the Deckard, which I think if it is VR, there are a couple things that Brad pointed out that would account potentially for it being like RDNA 2 and underpowered. Number one being that VR will be a focus in terms of like VR gaming, but another thing that will be a focus for the Deckard is playing flat games, as he calls them, 2D games, but like, you know, games that are not VR games, playing those in a virtual living room or in augmented reality with a screen sort of, you know, posted on your wall where there is no screen, that sort of thing. He seems to think like that's going to be a focus given the underpowered nature of the Deckard. And then the other possibility is like a Steam Deck set-top box. So something you plug into your TV. And I really don't know. My money is on Deckard just because of that's the thing that they've been working on for basically since it seems like they really kicked that into high gear since the Steam Deck was released. So that's where I'd put my money, and hopefully we'll see some like downstream benefits to Steam Deck users. Like maybe there is a slightly more powerful or slightly more efficient version of Van Gogh that could come to a Steam Deck revision, or maybe they need a Steam controller 2 in order to navigate the controls of the Deckard. You can't, it feels like you can't just release the Deckard without releasing controls for it. So maybe those are controls that you can use with a Steam Deck.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. But if we look at each thing, let's start with a set-top box. All right. So perhaps this is the reason why SteamOS 3.5 has been sitting there like months. Right. Somebody left a message on my video about SteamOS 3.5 when it first went into beta. I posted that it's coming soon. And the reason I said it was coming soon is because up until that point, Valve was iterating incredibly fast, and it was like beta, and then go, and beta, and then go. And it was super, super quick. And then they dropped SteamOS 3.5 on beta. And I was like, it's happening soon, everybody. And then it just sat there, and it's been sitting there, and it's still not out in the stable channel.
Hmm.
Do you think that this could, like, if it is a set-top box, or even if it's not a set-top box, do you think that they're just waiting for whatever this is to come before they drop SteamOS 3.5?
It, I don't know enough. It feels like yes. It feels like that's some sound reasoning here that they're waiting for their big hardware drop or waiting for something else to happen. Because yeah, it seems like they have a lot of the stuff ready. It's available in either in main, of course, or in even the beta channel. They've moved things up to the beta channel. So it feels like they're ready. They just are not pushing the button. But yeah, with Valve, it just feels hard to pin down what their motivations are.
It does. They're not quite as cagey as Nintendo, but they're pretty cagey. Like the way that
Yeah.
that they drop stuff. I don't know about you, but when they announced the Steam Deck, I was caught flat-footed. You know, I
Yeah.
wasn't really paying that close attention to it, and then they announced it. I was like, "Whoa, okay, this is
Mhm.
very exciting," and I'm really hoping that that's what we're about to get. So,
Yep.
if it's a set-top box, like this is something that I've been talking about for a really, really long time. I will replace my computer with it because my computer, it's a 2060. It's getting older. Yes, the Steam, whatever this new chipset, if it's running at a higher TDP, I don't know if it'll hit like my 2060 levels. I'm not like that dialed into hardware. Um, but I would love to take my giant massive Windows PC and replace it with a set-top
Yeah.
box, or maybe not replace it, put that on some other TV in my house. Is that something that you're interested in, or do you want to, or is your PC a little more modern than mine?
My PC is modern. I'm using it now to stream, but like I do want a set-top box. My concern is if it's just as powerful as the Steam Deck. Well, I mean, to be honest, I have two Steam Decks, right? So maybe I just leave my Steam Deck plugged in the entire time and I'd have the same experience. If it is a set-top box, I would want it to be more powerful than the Steam Deck. I'd want it to be sort of the same experience, but at 1080p being the standard resolution for the same amount of performance.
Yeah, and when you have FSR on that 1080p, able
Yeah.
to possibly upscale to 4K or 1440p, depending on what your screen is, that could look pretty good. Now, if this is a chipset for the glasses, like you were saying, sadly, at Bradley it is saying,
Mhm.
that makes a little bit less sense to me, because why would glasses like my X Real glasses or the Rokinids, I think are the other ones. Why would you need an APU for something like that? It's essentially just a display. Or is he saying that it's more like Apple's headset, where it's a virtual reality headset?
Yes.
Because it seemed like you were describing it in both ways.
Yes. So this is a virtual reality headset. And it would be powered completely by, like, imagine a Steam Deck on your head, right? Maybe a little bit more powerful, maybe a little bit more efficient, but essentially it's a Steam Deck that you wear. And so the problem with that is that it's still a little underpowered, I think, for what people would expect from VR. So then
Mm-hmm.
the question becomes is what would be the usage of it? And I think what Brad is saying is that you could if you targeted this hardware specifically, you could get good performance out of it, but otherwise what you get is you get your entire Steam Deck library, but you can play it in a virtual living room. So you can, decorate a virtual space that you have. You can decorate it however you want with the RGBs and stuff like that, and then you can play your flat games on there.
And you could get stuff from the trading card nonsense, and hang that stuff on your walls. That would
That's
actually
true.
be kind of cool. But when we talk about, like, look, if you look at let me grab my Steam Deck here. If you look at the size of the Steam Deck, shrinking this down to something that is comfortable to wear on your head, I don't see that as an option unless you have a wire going to something else. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
like a puck.
Yeah, like a puck or something like that. And that's if you want something as powerful as the Steam Deck. If you want something more powerful, it's going to need to be a little bit bulkier and beefier. I don't know how the battery life would be because, like, the screens are obviously much, much smaller if when you're dealing with a VR headset. And I'm not an engineer when it comes to like stuff like battery. I don't know if that would require smaller batteries to power, but even the one that Apple is talking about, like they didn't really talk about it in their video, but they like in their documentation they showed like, hey, you have a wire that then goes to like a battery pack that you wear on your belt or something. Is
Right.
that compelling to you? Like, do you want to have a headset that you put on and you've got a wire that goes down to your belt to play your PC games on, or are you somebody who would just prefer to play them on a TV or a computer screen?
Yeah, I prefer to play them on a handheld. So like it works out for me that's what I play is the Steam Deck or
Hmm.
other PC handhelds. I'm not really attracted by the VR notion here. I'm wondering if like there's going to be some unique marketing or something like that because I'm also curious to know like how much is it worth it to them to make a revision on this APU? How many do they think they're going to sell? If they sold, over 1 million Steam Decks, some marketing company were projected them at 3 million Steam Decks by the end of the year. How much percentage of that audience, or not the same audience, but how many people would actually go and buy a VR headset that's as powerful as a Steam Deck? It doesn't seem like there are quite as many people that would do that, but I've always had a bad, I think, understanding of like the people that buy VR headsets. So it's a little unclear for me.
Yeah, and if you love VR, I mean, I have a VR headset. I have the one for the PS5,
Right.
and I when I got it, I was like blown away at how friggin' cool it was. But I also learned by having one that it's a gaming style that requires a little bit of prep,
Mm-hmm.
because I want to keep my stuff in good condition. So I have a case for my headset to protect it from stuff because I didn't want like the cats chewing on the wires or something. I
Yep.
always wrap up my wire afterwards and use Velcro to zip it together or whatever, and then I put it in the case. So if I want to play a game, I got to get it out the case. I got to undo everything. I got to hook it all up and then put it on my head and then play. And if anything happens where I need my attention to focus back to the real world, I got to take it back off and set
Yep.
it down and, wipe the sweat off my face and then go do whatever it is and then come back. And it's just, there's been a lot of times where I'm like, oh, maybe I'm going to play some, Resident Evil 8 in VR. It's too much of a hassle to set up because I just don't leave it out all the time. And so I just lose interest in even bothering. And it sucks because it was really expensive and I just don't use it as much as I would like to.
Yep.
So when this thing, whatever it is, comes out, if it's a pair of glasses, my interest level definitely drops down. I might still pick it up because I want to be able to talk about it on the show.
Mm-hmm.
But like I don't know if I'm the core audience for this.
Yeah. Same
Let's
here.
yeah, so let's move on from the headset and Steam Deck 2.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think, I know that's what you're probably hoping for is because you just said your gaming style is more handheld.
Yep.
A Steam Deck 2, I said I don't think it's too soon. A lot of people don't like it when I say that because
Mm-hmm.
they feel like they must upgrade.
Yeah.
But it's like when people are like, I don't need the new phone, so I'm not going to get the phone this year, and I'll buy next year's phone.
Right.
That's the way I think of it. Like the Steam Deck 2 isn't for the people who have the Steam Deck 1. It's for the people who didn't buy anything and now
Right.
they're ready to jump in. And I feel like Valve is, if they, I know that they don't need to compete with the other handhelds because people are playing Steam games on those as well.
Right.
But if Valve wants to compete as, for hardware wise, it is starting to hit the wall. It's getting there. Do you feel like, when do you feel like is the good time for it, Rich?
There's so much nuance to that, right? So like one of the things that would keep me from saying it's time for an upgrade is deck verified. So like when it comes to performance, the performance aspect of deck verified, is it deck verified? Let's just say the base expectation is 30 FPS, even though we've seen that that's not really the actual like reality of games that are deck verified. They're not all running at a minimum of 30 FPS. But if we were to set if we were to set a baseline of 30 FPS, is it verified if it's 30 FPS on deck one, but and deck two, or is it verified if it just runs on deck two? Like how do we care about that?
I think I think the right move from them is to, I don't know. They should require that companies, if they want to get verification, they should require them to like make a little blurb that says, with these settings, this is the frame rate that you'll get, and then have that on the store page so that you can say on the Steam Deck 1, you would get 30 frames per second. On the Steam Deck 2, you get 40 frames per second or something like that with
that would be
the
neat.
Steam Deck settings.
Right. Yeah, that would be neat if it was something like that where Steam Deck 1 still has that sort of minimum of, let's just say 30, and the Steam Deck 2 gets a little bump. It does. I also think that it's going to be hard to justify the bump right now with the chips that are out there. So for me, like I'm perfectly okay with the idea that this is somewhere between a console cycle and a PC cycle, right? I certainly don't want every year a new iteration. So every 2 years I could see that, but I would prefer 3 to 4 years. That's kind of where I would sit with it.
And I'm the opposite for you. And I don't want every year either, but I do want every 2 years, because that way, if you are suddenly find yourself, I'm in the market for a new handheld,
right?
Then you aren't buying something that is 4 years old. You buy it, you take it home, and then you go to play, whatever game comes out in 2026. And it's just like, yeah, you're not playing that. So like you sitting there and you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't bought that. And then Valve announces the next one and you're like, dang it. If I had just waited 3 months, then I would have been all set. But if they have a faster release cadence, then whenever you're ready to upgrade to the next one, there is a new one that is available to you. Now, I did say that, and somebody said that, it makes it hard for devs to target this particular hardware. I don't think that's necessarily true. I mean, you get devs that are targeting, the different levels of consoles. You get the Xbox Series S and the Xbox Series X, and we had an entire huge discussions about whether or not the Series S is bad for Xbox. And I don't know how necessarily I feel about that, but like it makes it a good entry point for some people. And I don't know. I feel like it's okay if people just don't buy every single one as it comes out. But certainly, that's just me.
Yeah, I do think there's a crowd of people out there that are like, just got to have all the latest, right? And and I don't think that the Steam Deck necessarily is the target audience for the Steam Deck isn't those people. Those people will enjoy the Steam Deck, especially the first year that it's out. But the target audience, I think, are people, in my view, are people that are coming from console gaming and are brand new to PC gaming, which is why SteamOS is such a big factor in that, in the design of the Steam Deck. I think, they could have easily went with Windows, but I think SteamOS is not just a way to get away from Windows in terms of making sure that they have a platform that is theirs and theirs only, but I think also it's a vehicle, it's a means to for people to have a smoother user experience.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I love most about the Steam Deck is the user experience is really, really smooth. On my PC over there, I have Windows running, but I have a script that automatically loads Steam into big picture mode as soon as it starts. And I've also made it so that like I don't have to type in my password when I turn on the PC over there. I just hit the power button and then I wait for a while it does its, a PC booting thing. And then it
Mm-hmm.
boots into Steam OS, or not Steam OS, but big picture mode, and it feels like Steam OS. It's a really good controller first experience, which is what I am looking for, because I don't play mouse keyboard games. I almost never do. It's very, very rare for me. All right. Let's move on and talk about the next thing. And I think that we will move on to, well, I mean, if we're talking about updates to hardware, then I guess we got to talk about the Switch 2. There's been all kinds of rumors about the Switch 2, but that should not come as a huge surprise, because there's been rumors about the Switch 2 for years. We keep hearing about it, but at this point, I feel like with Tears of the Kingdom out, that is essentially the swan song for the Nintendo Switch, and they're going to be moving on to whatever comes next. When the Switch 1 was announced, or launched, I mean, on March 3rd, 2017, I think, it was already old hardware at the time, and that was 7 years ago, or math. Other people can do math. It was like fine. 7 years ago. This is really old hardware, and what Nintendo is able to do with that really old hardware is incredibly impressive. But like we said with the Steam Deck, you at some point you hit a wall, and they've got to either like build something new in order to hit the climb over that wall. And it looks like that may be happening next year, 2024. And one of the things that a lot of people are talking about is the fact that Nintendo had filed for a patent for upscaling tech, like DLSS or FSR or RSR, all these things that take a lower resolution picture and upscale it to a higher resolution so that it looks like it is running at a higher resolution. In Nintendo's patent, they were upscaling from 540p up to 1080p, but there's no reason why they can't also, start at higher resolutions and go to even higher resolutions. I don't think that Nintendo is trying to make a 4K device. I think that that's ridiculous for people are always talking about that. I don't see that as even remotely possible. I think that this is going to be a 1080p device, and it's going to use upscaling technology, especially because they're partnered with NVIDIA. And I think that it's, probably going to come out next year. What jumps out to you the most about the rumors surrounding the Switch 2?
Yeah, so certainly that it's running that Matrix Awakens demo. And I think people are sort of running with that to a degree that I wouldn't. Like you mentioned, the 4K thing, and I think because this demo was released to kind of show the power of PS5 and Xbox Series X when, for that specific generation, I think people are saying that if the demo is now running on the Switch, the Switch 2, then of course that means that the Switch 2 has hardware that's as powerful as those two. I don't imagine it's that powerful. But certainly the DLSS will help run those games at 4K if you do have it docked. But I'm just happy it's coming, to be honest. And so the fact that it's also, looking to be not just a step up in power, but a step up relative to its competitors or its peers, let's say, right? So like you said, the Switch was so far back ahead of its peers, or so far back behind its peers at the time of its release. And now it feels like this is not necessarily like parity, but it's much closer. The gap is much smaller than it was back in 2017.
Maybe, because in 2017, the Xbox One and PS4, I think Pros. I'm not sure if the Pros were out at that point, but those systems were the current generation, and Nintendo Nintendo Switch is less powerful than those. The current generation now is Series X and PS5, and the whatever Nintendo brings likely to be less powerful than those. Not going to be they're not going to be playing catch up. They are going to be probably at the same power level at like the differential between last gen and the Switch and this gen and Switch 2 or whatever it ends up being calling. And for those of you who weren't paying attention to the Switch 2 news, apparently at Gamescom, a bunch of journalists got to go see what the Switch 2 dev kit was and what it was running and stuff like that, like with the Enter the Matrix thing. So I think it's really cool. Do you think they stick with, like, Nintendo? We always expect that they're going to do A, and then they do like X instead. Like they do wildly crazy stuff that people don't expect. Everybody's saying, well, it's clearly going to be another handheld, right?
Right.
Do you think they stick with the handheld form factor, or do you think they do a set-top box or something, or with a little screen, kind of like the PlayStation Portal?
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, I think they have to stick with handheld. I think they're going to surprise us, and maybe it's they have that patent out there for like scroll wheels on shoulder buttons, so scroll wheels as shoulder buttons. So I'm sure they'll think of some way to surprise us, but I don't think that the way they surprise us could possibly be that it's not a handheld. I think they need to make a handheld, or else we'll see, a Wii U / GameCube situation.
Yeah, and the Wii U, well, Nintendo, they just killed it with the Wii. Like, it was flying off shelves. It was printing money. We saw all those memes of Miyamoto and Iwata-san laughing as money shoots out of the slot, the disc slot of the Wii. And then they announced the Wii U, which I own, and I thought was a fantastic system. It was really great, and there were a lot of really, really great games on that system.
Agreed.
But it only sold 14.7 million units over its entire lifetime. By comparison, the Switch is already over 100 million and approaching probably going to be the best-selling console of all time. It's just, it was really bad marketing on the on the case of the Wii U, because people were confused. They were like, "Oh, is this an upgrade to my Wii? Do I need to own the Wii in order to use this thing?" It was very, very confusing. And then, they shut it down. And one of the things that really helped the Switch do so well is that basically they said, "All right, we're going to take all of the stuff that we're working on for the Wii U, and we're going to move all of that stuff over to the Switch." So the first year the Switch had absolute banger after banger after banger. It had, Super Smash Brothers Ultimate. It had Splatoon 2. It had Mario Odyssey, Zelda Breath of the Wild. It had all of these fantastic games all in the same year on that system.
Yep.
And that's the reason why it sold so many units. It launched with 7 games. It only had 7 games at launch, and it is one of the best-selling consoles of all time because that first year was just this slow trickle of amazing game after amazing game. And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is like the highest attach rate of any game like ever, I think. So I think it's going to be very, very interesting to see what Nintendo does. I absolutely will buy one.
For sure. There's
you're
no
going to buy
question
one?
I'm getting one. I'm there for every Nintendo release, so I'm absolutely buying one regardless of what they do. But if it's a Switch 2, I'm buying several. I'm joking. I'm not buying several. But
you might. It's a handheld, so you might buy one for you and one for your wife and one for your kids, or I don't know. I don't remember how many kids you got, but you got 6 Switches in a house. That is one of the reasons why it's one of the best-selling consoles of all time, because people want to play it at the same time, and you don't have to worry about who's got the TV because each device has its own screen. Do you think it's going to be? Go ahead.
You hit the nail on the head with like the trickle of releases, and that's one of the things that surprised me about how well they've been able to keep that up. This year has been pretty damn good for just Nintendo, right? With Pikmin 4, I think. Was Kirby earlier this year? No, not this year. But Pikmin 4, Fire Emblem, obviously Tears of the Kingdom, and they still, even with all of that, they still have Super Mario Wonder coming. They still have that WarioWare game coming, which looks pretty cool to me, and Super Mario RPG, which looks phenomenal. So like they, all of that in just this year, and they're still talking. The rumors are of a Switch 2 release next year, and I don't think that they're you know putting all their eggs in this basket. I think they have enough eggs for the 2024 basket, and they're saving them for the Switch 2. So that's my speculation, but I think they've got a lot left in the tank.
So you listed off all those games that came out this year for the just first party games.
Correct.
Not even mentioning any of the third party stuff. You buy a Switch 2 next year. Do you think you're going to be playing these games on the Switch 2? Do you think that they're going to do that backwards compatible thing? Or do you think that they are going to kind of say, all right, well, we're going to cut it off here. We're going to start over because it'll make us a whole bunch more money that way.
Right. I think so. I mean, all the rumors seem to point that way. I don't know if that's just like hopium, right? Everybody's just wants it, so those are the rumors that are spreading. But I do think that they've toyed around with backwards compatibility in the past. Unfortunately, the Wii U is the biggest example, I think, as well as the Wii. And so I think that that is a benefit to them, is the, like you mentioned, the Mario Kart 8 attach rate. I think the number of people that don't want to lose their Switch library is humongous. So I don't think it's necessarily like there were a lot of talking points back in the day that, especially around Sony, that people don't play their backwards compatibility library. And I think in actuality, in reality, that's probably true. But there is something about me feeling like I'm losing that library, right? I want to avoid that loss. And so if Switch 2 can sell me on avoiding that loss just by giving me backwards compatibility, everyone knows they're going to make their money by reselling games anyway. They can resell Super Mario 3D All-Stars again, and it would, they had that limited release where they stopped selling it on the eShop and they stopped making copies. They could release it again and make a ton of money, and they have no shortage of ways to re-release games and make money again. So I don't think that's a problem for them. I think that if you can help me avoid that loss, that's going to go a long way.
See, I wonder if I were, going to be an evil guy and twist my mustache. One thing that I would do is I would say, okay, it is fully backwards compatible digitally, and there is no cartridge. You cannot buy cartridges. I'm only going to sell you games digitally.
What if they did
video
that
game
with
company
a subscription?
Oh, don't start that.
You could only,
subscription fatigue is really hitting me hard right now, because I was sitting on that couch over there with my wife, and we opened up the TV and we were going to watch something, and I got an alert that my Disney Plus subscription was increasing in price. I got an alert that my Hulu subscription was increasing in price. We just had PlayStation announced that they were raising their price for PS Plus. We know that Microsoft just did that too. And a lot of people throw shade at Nintendo for their subscription, but one thing that they didn't do, they didn't necessarily raise the price. They just gave you a different tier and said, hey, if you want to get this extra stuff, it's a little bit more money. Now, myself, I did not invest in that extra tier, so I didn't do that. But if, to kind of cycle back to rebuying those games, Nintendo does not, and neither does Xbox or Sony or any video game publisher. They do not like how much money GameStop is taken out of their pocket, or Target or Walmart or whatever, every single time. And if you go digital only, then you don't have to worry about that. And there are people where that would definitely be very bad for them because their internet's garbage, and they don't really have an option to get better internet. But I could see Nintendo saying, all of your digital Switch games are playable on Switch 2, but we had to get rid of the card slot for some reason.
Yeah, and realistically, it could potentially help them design a better Switch 2, right? If they don't have to worry about the actual cartridge slot. So there may be some, like, if they end up doing that, there may be some real reason for that. Honestly, I only own the one cartridge, the one that I bought with the Switch. All of my other games are digital only, and you can guess which game I bought with the Switch.
I'm gonna say it was Has Been Heroes.
Yep, 1-2 Switch.
1-2 Switch.
Yep.
Oh my god. Yeah. If you guys can't really, you probably can't see it because it's too blurry behind me. But those right there, the red stack, those are all of my physical Switch games. Everything else is digital, and I have probably 300 or 400 Switch games on my Nintendo Switch library. So, fingers crossed that backwards compatibility happens. All right, let's move on.
Can I make one quick plug?
Yeah, of course.
Physical games plug. So I do love physical games, even though like I love my library being digital. The reason I love physical games is because I can go to the library. My local library lets me check out video games.
That's awesome.
So yeah, so check out your library. They may let you check out video games. So yeah, shout out to libraries.
Shout out to libraries. All right, let's shout out to something else. What's next on the in the show notes there that you want to talk about, Rich?
What about Steam turning 20?
Oh my God, that makes me feel so old. So
old.
I'm a teacher, and one of the guidance counselors at my school is one of my old students. Makes me feel old, like makes me feel like an old man. I know that I look really young, but I am not. I am a very old man. And I remember when Steam launched, like I remember Half-Life 2 came out, and it was like you could, if I remember correctly, you could only play it with Steam, or it came with Steam, and everybody hated it. Everybody hated Steam. They were like, this is garbage. Why in God's name is Valve pushing this on us? And it only sold Valve's games at first. And 20 years later, it is the de facto video game store for anybody who has a PC, essentially. And now it's 20 years old. Like, what do you think about that? That's crazy.
Yeah, so I just went to my Steam profile to check. I have the 19 years of service, and I was a member since December 24th of 2003. And so the experience I remember, I think, might be before Half-Life 2, just before Half-Life 2. So it was Counter-Strike, and we were all playing Counter-Strike. I think it was either 1.5 or 1.6, one of those. I think it was 1.5 before. I think 1.6 was when it started to move on to Steam. Anyway, so yeah, that was the thing. Is like we all had pirated copies of Half-Life back in my day. I don't advocate for it, but that's what we had. And so using our pirated copies of Half-Life, we were able to install Counter-Strike, and we played that all, in our dorms or whatever. And so eventually they ended up making it so that you needed Steam to play Counter-Strike. And so I was able to register my pirated copy. I don't know what happened. I don't know how it worked, but that's how I ended up starting my career on Steam. And yeah, it was hated in so many ways. People did not want, this digital platform. The Steam green was super ugly.
Oh man,
but
hideous.
Right. But I think, what Valve did a good job of is really understanding what people did want from a digital platform, or really not from the platform at all, but from their gaming experience, right? So like Gabe has that famous quote about piracy being a service problem. And so I think he really went about it, or they really went about it in that way, is trying to fix the service problems that people were experiencing on PC gaming.
See, I feel, excuse me, I just got done saying how old I was. And you said how old your account was for Steam.
Yeah.
I just went to look. Mine's only 18. So I didn't play it for the first 2 years, but I'm also very much a console gamer. And probably actually at the time when Steam came out, I was probably completely sucked into World of Warcraft. And that's not a Steam game. So I was like, I don't care. I'm playing World of Warcraft. That's my jam. So yes, I'm a console gamer, but the PC game that I played for about 7 years as the only game that I played for the most part was World of Warcraft. So that's probably why my account is only 18.
That's funny.
Does it tell you the date when you made your account, like the actual date or just the year? Because I'm curious if people can find out, if they could post in the comments section on the YouTube channel how old your account is. Like, what's the date? I'm curious. What's the earliest?
Yeah, if you click your achievement, you'll be able to see that you were a member since, and it'll give you the date. So for me, it's December 24th. So Christmas Eve. Look at that.
Oh wow, you must have gotten that for a present or something, or
Yeah,
you got
I
it for yourself as a present.
That sounds correct. I do think I got like some sort of Half-Life something around that time, so that makes sense.
I'm trying to see which achievement am I looking for?
Years of service. It should, if you've been on for 18 years, it should have a big 18 on it.
Yeah, it just says level. Oh, I clicked on it. Okay, where is it?
Yep.
I'm trying to find it.
Here,
Holy cow! Get out of here! Oh no, that's not it. Sorry. For the listeners here, let me put this on screen so people can see what I'm looking at. Share screen, Steam community, share. All right. So I'm looking on here, and I for a second there, I saw community ambassador unlocked December 25th, but that was 2016. So that's not what it is. Where do you see the thing for the age?
So you should, if you go to your, you know what, I had it on my profile. So if I go to my profile, I have like one of those little rows for badges. Oh, click badges on the right hand side, sort of towards the top middle.
This is great for the people who are listening to the show. I apologize to all of you, but I'm curious. Oh, badges. Okay, I see it now.
Yep.
And then that's where I was.
Oh, weird. So yeah, you should have one with a number, but I don't see it here. Mine was in my like badges profile, so it was really quick to find it.
Okay,
so I may have to find it for you later. If nothing
I'll
else.
have to look after. And for the audio listeners, just imagine, a couple of people who are confused, and you'll be right on top of things.
Right. I was gonna say one of the things that really I was into Steam well enough because of like I said, because of Counter-Strike, but I never really like you're saying, console gaming was my primary platform for a long time. What really ended up getting me into Steam and PC gaming, and I'm wondering if it's similar for you, was after Xbox Live Arcade. So after Braid, after Super Meat Boy, after what was the other one? Like Fez was being developed, stuff like that.
Right, those big indies.
There was so there was a big wave 2 of indies on Steam. And that was around like 2009, 2010, 2011, around there, where like games like Space Chem, Frozen Synapse, I forgot what else, but like there were just a lot of good indies on Steam. And that's when I really, really got into Steam. So I'm wondering, when was you had it installed in 2005, it sounds like 2004, 2005.
Yeah, I guess so.
But do you know when you really like converted to being maybe more Steam first?
As far as just buying games, it was definitely later. It was just because that's where most of the games were. And honestly, I know everybody's always going on and on about the feature set of Steam and how great it is. And it is great. Most of the features I just don't use. Most of the features I like, if I'm talking to people, I'm on Discord. Like, I'm not using Steam's voice chat for stuff like that. So it's just a store for me. But I really like one launcher. I like to open up Steam and click, play my game. And I don't have to think about, did I buy this on Steam, or did I buy this on Epic, or did I buy this on, Uplay or Origin or whatever. It's just been the one that I go to because that's where most of the games were. And so when stuff comes to other stores, usually I'm just like, I'll just play something else. It's not like when we were kids and you had, so few options of games to play. We have so many games to play that if something just doesn't come to the place that I want to play it on, I'm just like, oh, well, I'll just play something else then.
Have you seen the Fox's video on his 10,000 games? Because it's basically, even in Steam, right? Like, I have that problem with like 1,500 games. Not to say that I still think one launcher is way more convenient. I'm just realizing as you're talking about it, like, I have that problem, not just with games on other platforms, but if I bought a game 3 months ago and it's no longer at the, the Steam, on the Steam Deck, you have that like top banner as you start it up to play your games. If it's not in that row, I might have forgotten about it by now, and that sucks.
Yeah, and it's gotten even worse with Humble
Hmm.
Bundle
Yeah.
because like I subscribe to Humble Choice, which by the way is a ridiculously good deal. Every single month, you can even say I'm going to skip this month if you want, and I never remember to. But every single month, you basically get an email and it's like your Humble games are available, and then you go
Yep.
there and you just add them to your library, and you just get like that top row of your Steam Deck or whatever just gets filled
Yep.
up with all these new games. And
Yep.
a lot of them I'm not necessarily interested in, and so what I end up doing is I take the codes and I put them in a spreadsheet to give away on
Yep.
like during the show or something. In fact, if you are here for the live chat right now, I will give away a code right now. So thank you guys
Nice.
for hanging out. But it fills up my library. Now I don't have the 10,000 games library like the Fox does, because that dude's just
Right.
crazy. Like, and but I did see the thumbnail. I haven't clicked on it yet, but I'm guessing that he has lots of issues where when he goes to like load up a library, like there's a little bit of chugging going on.
I don't remember if you mentioned that, but really it's the organization, right? Like keeping track of what you have, you lose that, you bought a game, that sort of thing. And then just when you want to go play something, you get a little bit of like analysis paralysis, that sort of thing. So yeah, what I've done in the past is I've used Play I want to get back into it, but I've used Play to sort of manage my library. So it's a game library organizer. That's what Play is. If you've heard of
Oh, okay.
Launchbox, it's similar to that, and it'll aggregate your games all into one app. The reason I don't use it anymore is because I just have a Steam Deck, right? So I just play my games on Steam Deck. But Play will aggregate your games into one app. You double click a game and it'll launch your game. But you can add additional data, right? You can say this is a 5-star game, this is a 4-star game. You can tag it, you can give it a genre, that sort of thing. So sometimes I might be like I'm in the mood for a roguelite RPG or something, and I'll look for that in my library and I'll sort by my score, or I'll sort by things that I've never tried before. So that makes it a little bit easier, but yeah, when you've got a lot of games, it can get tough.
I do a similar thing with my retro games. I got a big retro collection.
Yeah,
and I've got all the information scraped from not Screen Scrape, whatever the scraping website is. I got all those games scraped on there, and they all have like star ratings that people have said,
Right,
like this is a
exactly.
5-star game. So sometimes if I want to play a retro game, I go on there and I'm like, just show me the games that are 4 and 5 stars, and I'll go through them.
Yeah.
And anything that jumps out at me, I add to my favorites list so that I can come back to later. But I did want to say that as far as on SteamOS and the Steam Deck, I love the sorting and filtering options that you get on the Steam Deck just by default, because it's actually really powerful and it's very easy. You just hit it's not like nothing jumps out at you to say, hey, do this. But if you hit like the Y button, I think it is, it brings up the filters, and you can say, I only want to see single player games that are compatible with controllers that I haven't played yet. And that, you get all these little things and it filters out all your games. And then you can say, okay, I got like 6 games to choose from. That helps with the analysis paralysis.
For sure.
So that's definitely something that I think that people with large libraries on Steam could take advantage of. How much? You said you have like 1,500?
Yeah, 1,000 to 1,500. I'll check right now.
I'm like
1,675. So a little higher than I thought.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
thanks, Humble. I was going to check. I just loaded it up, but I was going to look, but I have my emulation is going right now, so I'm not going to look. But I think I have about 700. So I'm like a little amateur compared to you and the Fox with your crazy numbers. All right, yeah, it's 20 years old. That's just crazy. Let's move on and talk about the Legion Go. Right after Russ and I talked about this on the on the last week's episode. Right after that, I like the episode came out, and then this posted, because we talked extensively about the Legion Go, but with this AMA. Over on their forums, essentially got posted, and there's some pretty interesting information. I already put out a video about this. I think you did too, yeah?
Not this AMA. The video I put out came out, I think, right before the AMA. as well. It was similar to the podcast. But yeah, it's extremely interesting. So there's the VRR sort of explanation that like there are a lot of people even in my comments, right, and all of the Legion Go videos, or not the Legion Go videos, the latest Legion Go video as well as the 1X Fly video, because those are two recent consoles, or excuse me, PC handhelds that do not have VRR. And the comments are all over that are like, no VRR, no buy. And I get it.
It's the exact same comment on all of my videos about this. And I'm starting to think that like they're just bots. Like oh, look at this. It wants me to join them. I'm not going to sign up. Leave me alone.
No.
All right, go ahead. What were you saying?
Yeah, so there's a lot of no VRR, no buy, and so I assume it's not just my comments. Clearly, it's your comments as well, and it's probably this forum and other forums. So in any case, he goes on to sort of explain why VRR is great, but it's not always necessary, and he goes into like it gets deep into like difference between frames per second and the refresh rate of your screen and stuff like that. But I think the bottom line is that like he's saying that no VRR, if you don't have VRR on a 144 hertz screen, that still ends up being better than VRR on a 48 hertz screen. I don't remember sort of what the cap is for the VRR, like the ceiling for the VRR on the Ally.
The Ally, I think it's 120, isn't it? Like it's as low as 48 and up to 120, isn't it?
That sounds right. So I was wondering why he chose 48 as the example here. Maybe just because a lot of the refresh rate of your game, as opposed to the refresh rate of your screen, is probably going to hover closer to 48 than to 120 on the Ally. But either way, I'm not sure why he chose that specifically. But otherwise, I think he's right? Like if you're getting 48 hertz VRR and you compare that to 144 hertz non-VRR, you probably end up winning with the non-VRR screen.
Maybe. And look, so a lot of people, after I posted my last video about this, tried to explain it to me, which I appreciate, but trying to explain something like this in text is very, very difficult.
For sure.
Like I had people like doing like, they were counting the frames in text, like 1, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, representing the first frame and then the first frame again. Right. Here's the thing. For me, while I would prefer a VRR display, only because I know that most of the time I'm not going to hit those frame rates. Other people have said at the end of the day, 144 hertz is better because of this reason. And other people are saying VRR is better because of this reason. At the end of the day, if I'm playing a game, guess what? I probably am not going to notice. And somebody actually made a comment on my video. They said, I would love to have this side by side, where you have a VRR display and a non-VRR display, and you're playing them side by side, and you don't tell people which one's which, and have people say which one that they like better. Now, how is that possible to do on YouTube? Because, you got to have, I don't think that YouTube can have variable refresh rates. So it's like, I don't think that we can put that up as that'd be a fun, like you go to a mall and you give people two different Pepsi challenge.
And you make one of those shorts where like, okay, which one of these is better, and people just pick whatever they think is better, and that's the video. That would be a fun video. I would like to see that, but honestly, I think that most people, they just don't. It's not going to matter at the end of the day. The difference between these two things is not going to matter, and the longer that I think about it, the more I come back to, when the Switch came out and everybody was saying, oh my God, these games look like garbage on the Switch, or like when a game comes out to the Xbox and PlayStation and Digital Foundry does a side-by-side comparison and they zoom way in, and I'm not trying to throw shade at Digital Foundry because they do fantastic work, but they zoom like way in on the pixels, and they're like, you see how these pixels look? And I'm like, when I'm playing a game, I don't see that. I just play the game and I have fun. Same thing when the ROG Ally came out and people were comparing the screen of the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck screen is objectively worse than the ROG Ally screen. The Ally screen is absolutely better. When I'm playing a game on my Steam Deck, I don't care because I'm not looking at them side by side. I can only play one at a time, so it doesn't end up mattering to me. Do you feel like
you see that stuff, or are you more like me, where are you just kind of immune to it?
When I am playing the ROG Ally and then I go to play something else, this happened more so. I didn't follow it up with the Steam Deck because I was reviewing something else at the time. But I did play the ROG Ally, and then I followed it up with, I think, the Aya Neo 2S, and it was I did feel a difference. It did not feel as smooth as the Ally, but that is like what you're saying, right? Like I'm playing one and then right back to back I'm playing the other one, and I can tell the difference. But like as I played, I went from the Aya Neo 2S to the 1X Fly and then the Aya Neo Air 1S. By the time I got to the last one, I wasn't thinking about VRR. Like it's not something that where I'm like, oh, this screen isn't as smooth to me anymore. So I definitely it was normalized for me at that point, right? And so I do think for the most part, many people will not notice that. But I also want to say the other way. I do think that there are plenty of people that do notice it, and if it's important to you, that should definitely be a factor in your buying.
Yeah, I don't think that people who say no VRR, no buy are wrong. I just think that I don't care about it nearly as much as they do.
Yeah. Like I made a video where I ranked 3 handhelds in different categories.
I remember this one.
At the end of the video, I think the Ally came out on top. And that makes sense in terms of like if you watch those specific categories, like the screen is objectively better. The audio, I thought the audio is closer than a lot of other people did, but I think I rated the audio better on the Ally. So I rated the Ally better on a lot of these things, but I said what's most important to me is ease of use. And I forgot what else I said. Battery life is another one, right? So these things are more important to me. And then like this, for that, the Steam Deck comes out on top. So it's that, right? Like it's what are the most important factors for you, and based on those things, you should buy based on that.
And they all play the same games. Like they all play the same games, with few exceptions for games that won't run on the Steam Deck because of anti-cheat software or something like that, or games that won't run on the Ally for some other reason. Although those are few and far between. But it's definitely down to personal choice.
For sure.
My favorite, even though it's not the best, is still the Steam Deck for me. Because of Steam input and all the different inputs. But that's one of the reasons I'm so excited about the Legion Go, is because it has a lot of the stuff that makes the Steam Deck better for me. And
I can ask you about that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Like I mentioned in my last video that like I'm so excited about the vertical mouse, but I also am not the type of person. I think we actually talked about it in a podcast 2 weeks ago. I'm not the type of person that I think is going to really use it. I'm excited that it exists, and I can't wait to see other people use it. But do you think you're going to use the vertical mouse? Like, do you think you're going to prop up the tablet and then play like mouse and keyboard style almost?
No, I don't think that I will. I like that they're detachable, because then I can easily just, hook it up to a TV, and then I still have all of the same inputs that I had before when it was portable. I think that that's a very, very compelling experience. So I do like that they're detachable. I think that that's fantastic. But as far as like, the weird flight stick mouse, vertical mouse thing, I don't find that to be compelling. I'm not going to be playing a game like that on a 7-inch screen where I'm trying to be competitive.
Right. Same.
But the things that I do like about it is the fact that it has those back buttons. It has the trackpad so that you can hopefully use it with Steam input. Now, if the trackpad, I wonder if Valve will make a thing that will allow that trackpad to work, or if it's just a mouse. Because if it's just a mouse, then it won't work with Steam input's trackpad stuff.
Yeah.
And that would be very disappointing to me. So for me, I love Steam input. I think that it's great. I hope that Legion Space is what they call it?
Yes, Legion Space.
I hope that Legion Space is competitive with Steam input in terms of like what you can do with that, because I really like figuring out new ways to play games. I'm going to go back to World of Warcraft again. I would spend more time in World of Warcraft configuring my UI than I would actually
Right.
like playing. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to do this new stuff over here with this mod. I'm going to put this thing over here with that. And like, look
That's
at this
cool.
cool thing. All right, I'm too exhausted to play. I'm going to shut it off and go to bed. So like that kind of thing is very fun for me. So I don't care about the vertical mouse, but the input stuff is very compelling.
Yeah, that's awesome. One last thing I wanted to point out here, specifically, I want to point it out because I mentioned 48 watts TDP in my video. So there was a video, so there was a video from the Techspert, I think is his name, and I think that's where a lot of us got the 48 watts because we got a peek at Legion Space, which I do think is one of the earlier parts of this, package, right? So I don't think we're supposed to take Legion Space at face value the way it exists today. And one of the things that was shown was a TDP slider that went all the way up to 48 watts. But in the Ask Me Anything, the person clarified that the current assumption is actually 20 watts on battery, and he says 25 watts in wallet mode. Wallet mode is a new term to me. I assume, he means tethered to a wall, and so like a dock mode or something like that.
Oh, I could not figure out what the hell wallet mode was. Like, I was like, are you putting it in your pocket and using it as like your Pokemon Go thing? I was like, what is wallet mode? But
yeah,
boy, well, if 20 watts on battery, that's lower than the ROG
it's
Ally.
lower than the Ally. Mm-hmm.
And so is 25 watts on wallet mode. Like that's lower than the Ally. So this would not be as performant as the Ally in that case. And then they said we're working on 35 watt mode being available in wallet mode, but it's not a given and not a promise.
Yep.
That's very disappointing to me because one of the things that I was most excited about was the idea that this had a much higher TDP, not so that I could play it in handheld that way, but so I could dock it to my TV and get a better experience when I'm playing, especially because you don't even have to buy a dock for it because it has 2 USB-C ports.
Dock it to your TV or to your arcade cabinet.
Well, I would absolutely do both. I would try it out both ways. But actually, my ROG Ally is most of the time sits in my arcade cabinet, which is absolutely overkill. But it's it's the best way to play Street Fighter 6 on my arcade cabinet. So that's why I love doing that.
That's great. Never change.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love that game on arcade sticks. It's really, really great. My son and some of his friends have come over and they come up and they fight up there and then they're yelling at each other. And it kind of brought me back to when I was a kid, when my friends and I would play. Because most of the time when him and his friends play, it's a better experience if they're at their own houses because they get the whole screen to themselves. So having when him and his friends came over and were playing up here, that very much reminded me of when I was a kid and getting experiences that my son who's 15 didn't really get to experience because that's just not how gaming is these days. You know what I mean?
It's true. Yep.
All right. We absolutely went long. We had a topic that we were going to talk about today. We're going to go very fast with it. This topic comes from Qbus. And by the way, if you leave a topic and we use it on the show, I will reply to that topic with a Steam code for you for a game, which I did for Qbus. But they said, what is your most played? Oh, I misread the question. So now I've got it absolutely. Well, actually, I know an answer for this. He said, what is your most played non-Steam game? For me right now, it's Dungeon Keeper 2 from GOG. I read that comment as, what's your most played Steam game? So I loaded up Steam and looked it up, and I was like, oh, it's Final Fantasy 14 with 400 hours in it.
Wow.
But my most played non-Steam game absolutely has to be World of Warcraft. I've got months of real time in World of Warcraft because I played that game almost exclusively for 7 years, and every single, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was every single Wednesday night and every single Friday night, my friends and I would get together and we would raid. And we weren't good, but we would raid 2 days a week, every single week. And it was 4 hours at a time. It was so much fun. What's yours? What's your most played non-Steam game now that I've got the terminology correct?
I'm still struggling to think of one. I think the I'll say that the non-Steam game that I'm waiting to get on Steam the most so that I can spend dozens of hours on this is Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. So I've played it and I keep like I'm just about to sink my teeth into it when I'm like my progress, like if I have to reinstall it, especially like on a Steam Deck, it's a little clunky, or something like that, or like, save games, so there's no cloud save. So every time I just about to sink my teeth into it, I'm like, maybe it'll come on Steam soon. Maybe I can just not worry about it. But it hasn't come on Steam yet. So yeah, Activision, maybe now that Activision is part of Microsoft or about to be part of Microsoft, maybe, yeah, Microsoft, can you please port that to Steam? That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And let us know, if you're watching this, let us know in the comments down below, that like button. What is your most played? Actually, I want to change the topic a little. What is your most played Steam game and your most played non-Steam game? I'm very curious about that. And thanks to I forgot the name already. Huh?
Cubus.
Yeah, Cubus. Thank you to Cubus for
Cubus
sending
squared.
in that. Cubus, yeah, that would have been an easier way to say that. Man, we have so many topics that we did not get to talk about today. It was such a fun conversation. So
sure.
If you have not checked out Rich's channel, Rich, tell everybody where they can find your stuff and what you're working on.
Yeah, you can find me at Fan to Deck. This week I should have a few videos, so I should have a news video coming. I have the deck buttons that came out or went on sale recently, so I should have a review of those up pretty soon this week as well. So yeah, I have at least 2 videos coming this week, so check it out.
Awesome. And if you're listening to this show on your favorite podcast player and you want to check out the YouTube channel, head on over to youtube.com/nerdnest. And if you enjoyed this episode, you'll probably enjoy whatever one is on the screen right now as well. From the Nerd Nest, I'm Bill. That's Rich. Take it easy, everybody.